I would argue that secondary psychopathy is a bit of a mess as a construct. I think if we take Hare's four-factor model, which is interpersonal manipulation, callous affect, erratic lifestyle, and antisocial behavior, and what she's arguing is that so you have four things and you split them into two groups, right? The manipulation, callousness go in factor one, the erratic lifestyle and antisocial behavior go in factor two.
For those
And she's
listening on
calling that.
audio, Dr. Daniel Jones, by the way, has just held up four fingers and then split them into two and two to make a Spock sign.
Hey, that's right. And and I want you to live long and prosper, even if you have to deal with these dark personalities. The first two components, the manipulation and callousness, is what the people who are advocates of primary and secondary psychopathy call primary psychopathy. And then the erratic lifestyle and antisocial behavior is what they're calling secondary psychopathy. Well, the problem with the concept of primary and secondary psychopathy is that primary psychopathy is related to all three dark triad traits. They're all callous and they're all manipulative. So how can we really differentiate a personality trait when it's a common vein that runs through all the dark triad? And this is a paper I published with my friend AJ Figueredo in 2013. As we showed, if you broke all the facets of the dark triad apart and then you analyze them, callousness and manipulation is relevant to all three. It's the erratic lifestyle and antisocial behavior that's unique. It's the cynical worldview and strategic thinking that's unique. It's the grandiosity and the authoritative nature of narcissists that's unique. And so you need the full four-factor model that all correlate with each other to round out the construct of psychopathy. So I actually disagree that there are two types of psychopathy out there. Now, it's certainly the case that people who have antisocial personality disorder or people who have acquired through a harsh life, poverty, abuse, trauma, these tendencies for an erratic lifestyle and antisocial behavior in the absence of the dispositional genetic nature of being manipulative and callous. That is absolutely possible. And if we want to call that secondary psychopathy or something like that, I completely can understand that there are reasons why somebody may have that erratic, impulsive, antisocial nature, but not necessarily have the callousness and manipulation. I do think that could possibly be a thing. But if somebody is psychopathic, in the definition, construct definition as per Hare's four-factor model, or even if you were to move to other alternative models, such as triarchic model or something like that, the manipulation, the callousness, and the erratic lifestyle and they cluster. And so I would say there's that if you're looking at primary psychopathy, which is just manipulation and callousness, that doesn't tell us much because that applies to any of the dark triad traits.
So Dan, with what I'm hearing you say, if it's distinct, the Machiavellian is distinct from the psychopath, and the big part of
Mhm.
that is impulse control. And
Right.
we know that there are many studies that show that psychopaths have different brain structures and that those may make them even more prone to the impulsive behavior. Would that be the distinction? Do we have sort of a Machiavellian being the conscience of a psychopath, but without that difference in impulse control that comes back to the brain?
Exactly. I have done several systematic reviews of the literature, and there's just not enough data, not enough research. No, not we haven't reached a critical volume of studies that actually assess the dark triad and these brain structures, the dark triad in these brain imaging studies. If you're listening and you're one of these neuropsychology or neurobiology folks, please put all three dark triad traits in your imaging studies. We would love to know what the brain
Yeah.
structures of Machiavelli, because if there are some, so Thomas Brodetsky, the researcher I told you about from Hungary, and several others have done neuroimaging studies, whether it be functional or general MRI studies of the brain they've done with just Machiavellianism. And the brain structures do look different than what we see from a quintessential psychopathic person. But it's really hard if we didn't assess them both in the same person to make any kind of real firm conclusions. And the other problem we have with neuropsychological neuroimaging studies is that they're chronically underpowered in a lot of the things that they've done. So as we go through the field of psychology replication crisis, we need to increase those sample sizes to make sure that our correlations and our associations and observations are stable and replicable. And so that's one thing that I think the neuroimaging folks need to overcome as well, is because it's expensive to put somebody through an fMRI. It's expensive and time consuming to put somebody through a PET scan or an imaging study. But I encourage, it's necessary, very valuable to do that simultaneous with the same people and look at the brain structures. Because I think your suspicion is exactly right, Brad. I think the structures will be different.
To go even deeper on these ideas, you can watch my full episode using the link in the description or the box on the screen.